Okay, so if you've ever found yourself deep in the weird corners of YouTube, you might have stumbled upon a series called Nickyverse. And if you have, you already know it is chaotic, it's bizarre, and honestly, it's pretty fascinating. If not, well, you are in for a ride. Today, we're going to try to make sense of this internet phenomenon, its strange characters, its completely absurd world, and the single unique vision that somehow holds it all together.
This quote pretty much says it all. A character gets asked to define photosynthesis, and instead of, a scientific answer, he threatens his teacher and just starts spelling out the word dynamite. And that, right there, is the Nickyverse in a nutshell. It's totally unpredictable, absolutely absurd, and you can't help but laugh.
So what even is the Nickyverse? Well, at its heart, it's basically this wild crossover event. Just picture characters from indie horror games, popular cartoons, all living together with a bunch of completely original creations. That's the bizarre foundation this entire world is built on.
And the cast is the perfect proof of this. I mean, you've got characters from the game Garden of Banban like Jumbo Josh right next to Huggy Wuggy from Poppy Playtime. And then, why not? Let's throw in Polly Planter from Disney's Amphibia. It's this crazy, eclectic mix that gives the show its signature anything can happen kind of feel.
All these characters live in this world called Nickyville, which really just boils down to two main spots, a super chaotic classroom and the even more chaotic town itself. And this is where all the weird drama goes down. So on one side, you have the classroom. It's a place so out of control they actually had to shrink the class size down to just 11 students to get a little bit apiece. This is where you learn that photosynthesis is apparently spelled D-Y-N-A-M-I-T-E. But then you have the town, where backyard fights over who gets which sleeping bag are common, and filing a police report because someone was being bossy, well, that's just another Tuesday.
And the conflicts are usually about these incredibly small, everyday things, but they're treated with 100% seriousness. In one episode, Jumbo Josh gives up his spot in a tent during a storm, right? The character who now has to sleep outside doesn't just get annoyed. He calls Josh a right muppet. This is what passes for high drama, and honestly, it's the lifeblood of the show.
Okay, check this out. This is a perfect breakdown of a typical Nickyverse plot. It starts with something simple, right? An obstacle course made of pencils and blocks. Then someone trips. This leads to yelling, and the yelling leads to a formal police report. This is the show's signature move, taking a tiny, childish problem and just blowing it up to a ridiculous extreme.
But here's the thing, the Nickyverse isn't just random chaos anymore. Lately, the series has started weaving in these more serious, overarching plots, which kind of suggests a bigger story is starting to take shape. A huge part of this shift is this new antagonist, Gunny. She's set up as a real threat, She carries a knife and her whole goal is to terrorize the town. But in classic Nickyverse style, even this serious villain has a hilarious weakness. She's absolutely terrified of the dark, and her Uncle Fred.
And then, this mysterious message shows up from a character named Marcy, and it kicks off a totally new kind of story. We're not talking about classroom drama anymore. This message literally pulls the characters out of their daily lives and throws them into an actual adventure quest. At this point, the whole vibe of the show just changes. Suddenly, the world starts working on video game logic. The characters have to solve these puzzles where they can only jump on blue stones, and if they mess up, their progress resets. Like one character points out, it stops feeling like a school comedy and turns into a full-on puzzle platformer.
Which brings us to one of the most unique things about the Nickyverse, how self-aware it is. The show is constantly breaking the fourth wall, making jokes about the fact that it's an animated series.
This line from Toucan is the perfect example. While they're on this temple mission, he straight up complains about the show's sudden genre change. The characters aren't just characters in the story. They seem to know they're in the story, and they're aware of its structure, its history, and all its little quirks.
And the meta-humor gets even weirder. In one episode, the word bored is forbidden. Just forbidden. Why? It really seems like a joke about random censorship or strange studio notes. When Stinger Flynn says it trying to rank episodes on a whiteboard, he's immediately arrested. The show is making fun of its own potential rules.
So you have to ask, where does all this incredibly specific, chaotic, and self-referential humor come from? Well, once you start looking at the credits, a very clear picture starts to form. Just take a look at this table we pulled from the credits of a few episodes. The names Nicholas Wiggly, Nickyverse, and a few other variations pop up over and over and over again.
They're doing the animation, the script, the directing, the voice acting, producing, just about everything. This is definitely not a big studio production.
What this really tells us is that the Nickyverse is the product of one single, do-it-yourself creative vision. The show's one-of-a-kind blend of humor and meta-commentary isn't something that came out of a writer's room. It is the direct fingerprint of its creator. It's a pretty powerful reminder of how platforms like YouTube let these unfiltered, deeply personal projects find an audience totally outside the old studio system. Which brings us all the way back to our main question. After digging into its characters, its world, and how it's made, what exactly is the Nickyverse?
Well, it's a wild cultural mashup where any character you can think of might just show up. It's a world that takes tiny problems and blows them up to comical new heights. Its story is changing, it's evolving from random chaos into something with a real plot. And maybe most importantly, it's a super self-aware series that is, without a doubt, the product of one single creative voice.
So, the final question I want to leave you with is this. Is the Nickyverse just an elaborate inside joke that we're all lucky enough to be on? Is it the start of a genuinely complex story? Or, in its own weird and wonderful way, is it somehow both at the exact same time? That's for you to decide.